So in this section, what I'm going to try to run you through, and everybody's calculator is going to be a little bit different depending on what model you have, but we should be able to stop using table E today, okay? We should be able to enter the values in the way they need to, and our calculator will just give us the corresponding areas under the curve. So that's the main purpose of what we're doing today. The secondary purpose is that we're going to look at some applications, some word problems, where you would technically need to convert them to z-scores first and then look them up in table E, but our calculator will do it all for us. And I know you're fans of that. So let's look at the three problems that we went through on Friday. Okay, so these are the exact same three problems. We already found the answers. The point of this is to show you how to use your graphing calculator to come up with the same answers. The one thing I'm going to insist on that we've talked about, on Friday, is whenever we do this, whenever we're looking at the area or wherever we're trying to pull that corresponding number, we're going 4 decimal places. Not 10, not 2, 4. Every time. Even if it's an exact value. Okay? So here's what you're going to do. Okay, in your calculator, you're going to hit the variable button, the vars button. You're going to hit second to get to distributions. Okay? So the vars button is kind of up to the top-ish, right? Kind of. Anybody having trouble finding it? Hit second vars. Second vars. That will get you to the distribution table. Okay, and you get a whole bunch of funky looking things. But the top two are normal. You notice that they both say normal. Okay? The one we'll be using is the normal CDF, which is the second one down. So that's what your screen should look like. That's where you need to be going. Okay? Now, on some of your calculators, you can just type in the lower bound, because it's going to automatically give you a left parenthesis. Okay? In some cases, you can just type the lower bound, the upper bound, right parenthesis, hit enter, and it will give you this value. Okay? Some of your calculators, when you hit normal CDF, will give you a whole new menu. And if that happens, the key thing is that the mean has to be 0 and the standard deviation has to be 1. Okay? So that your calculator should already be set up that way. I believe the ones that have the LCD screens aren't. Is that true?
This one? No,
you got the whole menu too. Okay, good. So the key thing then is, so I'm going to just write this up here. If you don't have, if it doesn't just allow you to do the 2 and it forces you to pick 4 things, make sure that the mean is 0 and the standard deviation is 1. Now, the screen that you're going to type in, that sort of menu with the 4 different things on it, it's probably already set up that way. Okay? What's nice is we're going to change these things to do the word problems. In order to just find the values in table E, you want it to be 0 and 1. Okay? So the question is, all right, if it's equal to 1.99, we need the bounds. And since it's to the left of 1.99, we have to think about it in terms of that graph. The right bound was this. Okay? The left bound, there was no left bound. It just went on forever that direction. And so what we have to do is type in a really, really small number for the lower bound. And I'll show you what that looks like. Okay? Because in reality, what we have here is this is z less than 1.99. Okay? Because that's the right bound and everything less than that. This one to the right, which means negative 1.16 is the left bound, and then everything bigger than that. In this case, it's easier because you can just type the 2 in, your lower bound, your upper bound, then your 0, 1, and it'll give you that. So let's start with that one because that's the easiest one to do. Okay? So go ahead in your calculator, type negative 1.37 in for the lower bound, 1.68 for the upper bound, and then again it's going to, it should already have the mean and standard deviation as 0 and 1, and I think then at the bottom it says paste. Go ahead down to that when you've entered it all in and just hit enter. Okay? And what should happen is it takes you to the sort of normal screen where it has it all written out like this. Okay? And then you have to hit enter again, and this is the number. That's what you should have gotten. How many got that? Okay? The point being here is this calculator contains table E. Okay? Let's talk about what our bounds need to be for each of these two things. Okay? And the reality is the numbers I'm going to show you for those lower bounds, it's really, this is negative infinity is the left bound, and this is positive infinity for the right bound. Okay? But you could actually get away with just putting in a generally big number because we don't have a way to put infinity into our calculator. So, and I'm going to write this here real quick. This really is the interval from negative infinity to 1.99. Okay? This really is the interval from negative 1.16 to positive infinity. For those of you who understand interval notation. If you've not been in pre-calc, there's a good chance you don't know what interval notation is. Okay? And then this interval is just like that. Okay? That's just interval notation of those inequalities. The key thing is we have to figure out how to represent negative and positive infinity. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So here's how we're going to do that. Okay. These values here, that's negative 1 to the 99th power times 10 to the 99th power. That's as big as our calculator will let us go. And this is 1 times 10 to the 99th power. Now you're looking for, on your calculator, you're looking for an EE button. And it's off to the left, and I believe it's above something. Above the comma. Thank you very much. So if you type in, for example, on this first one, so let's actually go into the normal CDF command, okay? So if you go back into second vars and you plug this in down here, your lower bound now is going to be negative 1 times 10 to the 99th power. So what you do is you're going to type in negative 1, that EE button, and then 99. And you should get, on your screen, it should look like this. Then your upper bound, for this case, is 1.99, and then you still have the 0 and 1. You should go through it, and you should still get the 0.9767. Okay? Okay, negative 1, so make sure you have the negative 1, EE 99, and comma 1.99. We indicate negative infinity on our calculator is this way. Negative 1, and this means times 10 to the 99th. 10 to the 99th is obviously a really huge number, and for all intents and purposes, might as well our calculator will understand that it's negative infinity. For positive infinity, we just make it positive instead of negative, okay? When it says to the left, that means this is a right bound. It also means this, so it's less than, and it keeps going to, negative infinity. There's only a right bound. For the other way, there's only a left bound when it's going to the right, because this means it stops at negative 1.16. Now think about the graph too, right? We drew the line and we shaded it to the right. So that means, so it's sort of pointing in the positive infinity direction. This way we shaded it to the left, so it points to the negative infinity direction. All right. How many were able to get the first one here? Raise your hand. Okay. Go ahead and try the second one just to make sure you can get that one. And that's how you're going to proceed from this point forward. Instead of using table E, you don't need to always have that with you, even though I sent it to you. I will probably provide it to you, table E, on a test and quiz anyway, but I think this is quicker and slicker, and to do what we're actually going to do next, you can't, I'm not going to show you how to use Table E. I'm going to show you only how to use your calculator. Anybody still having issues? All right. We're going to be taking this, and we're going to change the mean and the standard deviation. So
where is the 0 and 1?
that's the mean, that's the standard deviation. It's not in here anywhere for this problem. It's on your screen. You have to force it in there in order to make Table E work in your calculator. Okay? Now, oh, let's do one more. Yeah, let's do the opposite too. So we found the z-score using the area. If you use this inverse norm function, same menu, second bars, number 3 now. What should happen is when you type this in, you should get 1.65. So do that real quick. I'd like to see what happens. To be honest, I don't know if it's going to work because I haven't tried it, but it's supposed to. Did it work? The key thing here on that is we always want to look at the area to the left. So, for example, if it wanted this, if we were actually looking for the area to the right, you'd have to plug this value in. So this one would have given us so that's where we do the 1 minus again. But again, the calculator will do that for you instead of having to search for that value in the table E, okay? All right, let's get to the problem that we're actually gonna work on. So go ahead and take a picture of that and then we'll go through it. Here's what's going on. So all the problems for homework that you're gonna do are very similar to this. Okay, they're gonna give you a real life example. They're gonna tell you the mean and the standard deviation, and then you've got to figure out the percentage of whatever they're asking for, okay? In this case, they're gonna say things like on average. You have to interpret the words. This is the mean. When they say things like on average, they're giving you the mean. The standard deviation is, they're gonna say the standard deviation is this. And now we're looking for the value of less than 160. So in terms of a graph, here's what's really happening. They're saying the mean, the middle. All right, here we go. So again, this is the mean, so that marks the middle part. 160 is obviously greater than that mean. So what we're actually trying to find is this area. Now, if we didn't have our calculators and we relied solely on table E, we would have to convert these to z values, okay? And we've done that before. We found z values based on a particular score. I am not going to require you to do that, okay? And the reason is because our calculator will do it for us. But I talked about on Friday how the values in the problems would coincide with a z value, and we'd use those z values. So I'm going to show you what they are. So if I convert those to z values, okay, mean is going to be 0. I could look up 0.47. I could look up 0.47 in table E and it would tell me the percent to the left. Instead, we can just use our calculator to type it all in. And we're still going to use that normal CDF function. Okay? And we're going to plug in 146.21 for our mean. So where our mean was 0, we're going to put this in. Where our standard deviation was 1, we're going to put 29.44 in. Okay? And this is how it goes. As I showed you before, the two had, this one was set as 0. When these are 0 and 1, it just will give you the table E value. So in this particular problem, okay, since it is less than 160, the left bound is negative infinity. The right bound is 160. Then I have to change the mean and the standard deviation. And then it'll do it for you. So you don't have to convert to z values. You don't have to know what z value 160 is. What you have to know is how to enter it in your calculator. And since it's less than means negative infinity. Greater than means positive infinity. If it gives you an actual interval, then you put the upper bound and lower bound in. And that's all there is to this.
Wait, that's it.
That's it. Yes. Okay. Now, so go ahead and do this, and we'll talk, and then let's see if you get the right answer. Whenever you see less than, we're talking about 160 is the upper bound, and everything else lower than that, meaning that's where you do the negative infinity. If it wanted more than 160, then 160 is the left bound, the lower bound, and positive infinity. So greater than, more than, that's going to be positive infinity on the right. Less than is going to be negative infinity on the left. Okay? Good? Who has an answer? Raise your hand if you have an answer. Okay. Thank you. No, not yet. Make sure that your answer actually answers the question. So, you should have gotten 0.6808. Did you?
I got 0. I got 0.
3? All right. Rounds up to 3?
Yeah, it's not round up to 8.
Well, I'll believe you. Maybe I just typed it in wrong. Okay, so then Caroline's question was, you do 4 places for the percent? No, I mean 4 total places. You take this number and just convert it to percent. It does ask for percentage. Most of the time it's going to ask you for percentage. So make sure you do that, okay? Questions about what we're doing here? Now, just remember, when you're using that function, if you're just looking for the table E value, make sure that this is 0 and this is 1. Otherwise, you can plug in the values that you need to plug in. One of the things I highly recommend, and when I say highly recommend, I'm telling you to do it. Identify the mean and the standard deviation. I realize you can put this all in the calculator, but if you write these things down, it will be easier for me to tell if you know what you're doing. Since the work is all done in the calculator, I don't like the it's all right or all wrong all the time, especially when we have a quiz. I like to be able to look at what you're doing a little bit. All right?